The world of organized crime is often shrouded in darkness and danger. Where power plays and violent threats become the norm, the sons of El Chapo, Joaquin and Ovidio Guzman, have boldly threatened the U.S. government. What drives their audacity? How far are they willing to go? The Legacy of El Chapo. Joaquin Guzman was born on December 25, 1954, in Sinaloa, Mexico, growing up in poverty. He faced numerous hardships that shaped his character and ambitions. Guzman began his criminal career in the late 1970s by working for the Guadalajara Cartel, quickly learning the ins and outs of drug trafficking. By the 1990s, Guzman established himself as a formidable player in the drug trade, founding the Sinaloa Cartel, which became one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations globally. His rise to power was marked by strategic alliances and corruption, allowing him to evade law enforcement for years. He was notorious for his innovative smuggling techniques, including elaborate tunnels for drug transport. His reign was characterized by extreme violence and a willingness to eliminate rivals. However, his empire faced significant challenges when he was arrested in January 2016 after a dramatic escape from prison. Many believed this would mark the end of his reign, but it created a power vacuum that led to chaos within the cartel. The Rise of the Chapitos. Enter los Chapitos, Joaquin Guzman's sons, Joaquin Guzman Lopez and Ovidio Guzman Lopez, who stepped into leadership roles following their father's imprisonment. These young men inherited not only their father's wealth, but also a vast criminal empire filled with opportunities and dangers. Los Chapitos quickly adapted to their new roles within the Sinaloa cartel. Joaquin focused on logistics and operations while Ovidio maintained relationships with key players in the drug trade. Their leadership style reflected their father's ruthless approach and a new willingness to engage in open conflict with rivals. Under their direction, the Sinaloa cartel sought to reclaim lost territory and expand its influence, engaging in violent confrontations with rival gangs. This transition was marked by an increase in violence as they fought to assert their dominance over competing factions. One notable incident occurred in October 2019 when Mexican security forces attempted to arrest Ovidio Guzman Lopez in Culiacan. The operation quickly spiraled out of control as armed members of the cartel responded with overwhelming force, showcasing their firepower and willingness to engage in open conflict with law enforcement. The rise of Los Chapitos illustrates how dynastic power structures within organized crime can perpetuate violence and instability. As they navigated their father's legacy, they faced immense pressure to maintain control over an empire built on fear and bloodshed, a new era of violence. As Los Chapitos took over the leadership of the Sinaloa cartel, Mexico entered a new era of violence that shocked the nation. The brutality escalated as they fought to establish control over their territories, creating a reality where gunfire became an everyday occurrence for many Mexicans. The tactics employed by Los Chapitos were brutal and often public. Assassinations became commonplace as they targeted rivals, and anyone perceived them as a threat. The violence extended beyond rival cartels. Innocent civilians found themselves caught in the crossfire or targeted for retribution. The incident in Culiacan is just one example of how far Los Chapitos were willing to go to assert their dominance. When authorities attempted to detain Ovidio Guzman Lopez, cartel members launched an all-out assault on law enforcement officials, resulting in chaos throughout the city. The impact of this violence has been devastating for communities across Mexico. Families are torn apart as loved ones are killed or go missing due to cartel-related violence. The fear instilled by these organizations creates an atmosphere where ordinary citizens feel powerless against such overwhelming force. As Los Chapitos continue their reign of terror, questions arise about how long this cycle of violence can persist. Will there ever be an end to this brutal conflict, or will it continue to spiral out of control? Threats against the U.S. government. Now let's discuss something that has raised eyebrows across borders: Los Chapitos' threats against U.S. officials. These bold statements have sent shockwaves through both Mexico and the United States. In recent years, members of Los Chapitos have made headlines for their criminal activities and their brazen threats directed at U.S. officials and agencies involved in combating drug trafficking. These statements reflect a boldness that has raised alarms about their intentions regarding cross-border operations. The implications are massive, as tensions rise between law enforcement agencies on both sides of the border. Cooperation becomes increasingly critical yet complicated. The Chapitos are not just playing games, they're sending clear messages about their intentions regarding cross-border operations. These threats signal a willingness to escalate confrontations with law enforcement agencies, which could lead to increased violence along the border region. As both nations grapple with rising drug-related violence and trafficking issues, how will this affect diplomatic relations? Moreover, these threats complicate efforts aimed at addressing organized crime while heightening tensions between law enforcement agencies tasked with combating these issues. As Los Chapitos assert their influence through intimidation tactics, U.S. authorities are forced to reevaluate their strategies for dealing with this evolving threat. The Fentanyl Crisis. Let's tackle one of the most pressing issues linked to Los Chapitos, the fentanyl crisis gripping America. Fentanyl is an incredibly potent synthetic opioid responsible for thousands of overdose deaths each year. And guess who's at the center of it? That's right, Los Chapitos have been instrumental in producing and distributing this deadly substance. The statistics surrounding this crisis are alarming. Thousands have lost their lives due to fentanyl overdoses each year as American communities grapple with addiction and its consequences. Reports indicate that Los Chapitos has capitalized on this demand by expanding its operations into synthetic opioid production, significantly impacting public health across borders. But what does this mean for American society? Families are being torn apart as loved ones succumb to addiction or overdose linked directly to fentanyl produced by networks associated with the Sinaloa cartel under the leadership of El Chapo's sons. The human cost of this crisis is profound. Stories abound of individuals falling victim to addiction or overdose, while communities face increasing challenges related to drug abuse. Law enforcement struggles to combat an ever-evolving landscape of drug trafficking as Los Chapitos continue their operations unabated. Legal battles and plea deals. We're diving into the intense legal battles facing El Chapo's sons, Joaquin and Ovidio Guzman, also known as Los Chapitos. These guys are not just living in their father's shadow, they're fighting serious charges that could change everything for them. After their arrests, both brothers pleaded not guilty to a slew of charges, including conspiracy to distribute narcotics and involvement in organized crime. But here's where it gets interesting. They're currently in discussions with U.S. prosecutors about potential plea deals. Can you think up? Their attorney, Jeffrey Lichtman, hinted at this during a recent court hearing. A plea deal could mean they plead guilty in exchange for reduced sentences and cooperation with the authorities. This isn't just about their freedom, it could shed light on the inner workings of the Sinaloa cartel. The legal landscape surrounding Los Chapitos is complex, with each brother facing individual charges that may not be prosecuted together. The implications of a plea deal extend beyond their circumstances. They could potentially lead to revelations about cartel operations and other key figures within the organization. Rivalries and alliances. Let's talk about the rivalries and alliances shaping the landscape of organized crime in Mexico since taking over the Sinaloa cartel. Los Chapitos have found themselves in a fierce power struggle, particularly against Ismael El Mayo Zambada's faction. Zambada is a co-founder of the cartel and has been a dominant figure in the drug trade for decades. The competition between Los Chapitos and Zambada's group has led to violent confrontations as both sides fight for control over lucrative drug trafficking routes. We've seen reports of increased violence across Mexico as these factions clash. It's a dangerous game where loyalty can shift in an instant. But here's the twist. Alliances are crucial for survival in this brutal world. Los Chapitos are not just battling rivals. They're also trying to forge strategic partnerships with other criminal organizations to strengthen their position. However, these alliances can be fraught with tension and betrayal, making them even more complex. As this drama unfolds, it's clear that maintaining power within the cartel landscape is no easy feat. The future of Los Chapitos will depend on how well they navigate these rivalries and alliances while keeping their empire intact. The future of the Sinaloa cartel. Let's speculate about what lies ahead for Los Chapitos and the Sinaloa cartel amidst increasing law enforcement pressure. With El Chapo behind bars and authorities ramping up efforts to dismantle drug trafficking organizations. There are many questions about how this will affect cartel operations moving forward. One possible scenario is continued infighting among factions within Sinaloa as various groups vie for control over lucrative drug routes. We could see more violence as rival factions attempt to exploit any weaknesses that arise from leadership changes. Alternatively, Los Chapitos might seek to consolidate their power by forming strategic alliances with other criminal organizations or rival cartels to strengthen their position against external threats. It's all about survival in this ruthless world. And let's not forget about their ongoing legal issues. If they strike plea deals or face lengthy prison sentences, this could create a power vacuum within Sinaloa that rival factions would be quick to exploit. The future remains uncertain as law enforcement agencies continue their crackdown on organized crime while Los Chapitos try to hold on to their empire. A cycle of violence, finally. Let's reflect on whether threats from cartel leaders like Los Chapitos will lead to more violence or prompt changes in strategy among criminal organizations. As law enforcement intensifies its efforts against drug trafficking networks, we must consider how these dynamics will evolve. Increased violence often leads to heightened security measures and diplomatic tensions between countries grappling with cross-border crime issues. As Los Chapitos navigate this precarious landscape marked by threats and competition, it remains uncertain whether they will adapt their strategies or continue down a path characterized by confrontation and bloodshed. Understanding these dynamics requires us to recognize that organized crime reflects broader societal issues related to poverty, addiction, and systemic corruption. Addressing these root causes is essential for breaking free from cycles of violence perpetrated by powerful criminal organizations like the Sinaloa Cartel. What do you think will happen next to Los Chapitos? Will they successfully negotiate a plea deal, or will their threats escalate into something more dangerous? Drop your thoughts into the comments below. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.